I appreciate you think I'm this tall.
Is that better? Okay. Don't steal that. I'll forget what I have to say.
No, sorry about that. No.
It's not every day that I get to have the chance at a captive audience while you sit around and I get to stand here and just tell war stories. That's great. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to let me do that. We're going to do a little more than that today, but I just want you to know that I consider this a rare gift and a privilege to be here with you all today. First of all, this memorial is beautiful. I've just not seen anything quite like it in a local community. So can we just give Webb and the people who made this possible, the men and women who made this possible, one more round of applause, please. There is not a day that goes by that I don't think of some aspect of my active duty time in the Marine Corps. And in preparing for what I wanted to say to you today, I kept encountering memories from my military service, and I asked the questions time and time again. As I came up against memories of that service, I asked myself two questions. What drove me to do that? I mean, who's with me so far? What drove me to do that? And why do I remember that so vividly? And certainly the majority of those thoughts, for me, as I'm sure for many of you, tend to be steered toward those desperate moments if you ever faced combat. But there are still others that are far away from the battlefield and center around the training, right? Or the meals that we shared together, right? Or the drinks that we toasted in celebration of festive occasions, or to our fallen comrades, yes? Or the long and drawn-out planning meetings. Who is with me on that? I'm sure we all endured some or all of those points. And all of these experiences flooding my mind came up against those questions. What drove me to do that? And why do I remember that so vividly? And every time the honest answer that came to mind was one that sounded a little unpolished, but was definitely the answer that seemed to fit. And it's really simple. Because we were together. And that's it. I don't know any other better way to explain it. Because we were together. And no matter what we were celebrating, what we were mourning, what we were learning, enduring, we knew that we would come through it together. Because we were together. And no matter the shortcoming of the individual, to my left, to my right, no matter the family crisis that was being faced, no matter the uncertainty that lay behind the next enemy door that we were going to kick in, we knew we were going into it and that we were coming out of it, dead or alive, together. And we move forward. We move forward as service members. We move forward as veterans together. And we all play our parts. We all have played our parts. We all continue to do that. And we all prefer one another's life over our own. And so I remember early in the morning on April 9th, 2003, southeast of Baghdad, when the ground shook around our amphibious assault vehicle and the enemy ambush erupted like it had before, and it was doing again on our unit's right flank. I knew the part that I had to play. And I know that my men knew theirs. Our vehicle was taking small arms fire, and so we positioned it behind a small one-story building to provide some small bit of cover. because I was in the commander's hatch, which is a little bit higher up in the vehicle, I was able to dismount the vehicle a little bit more quickly than the rest of my men. As a result, I found myself moving very quickly to a relatively exposed position in order to draw fire away from the rest of my men. I ran across the ground to a partially destroyed enemy sandbag bunker, and it was kind of in the middle of the street. In hindsight, it probably wasn't my best decision. My wife, I remember telling her the story the first time, and she kind of, what were you thinking? And to answer that question, while I was running, I remember thinking two things specifically. Wow, you're running pretty fast for all of this stuff on. And two, the second thing was kind of a very candid notion, and maybe some of you share this with me. And it went something like this. You know, this might be it for you, Joel. You might as well go out fighting and give your buddies a chance to get in a better position. And I checked back to make sure that the men in my unit were unharmed for the moment. And then I went to work firing my rifle to suppress the enemy attack across the street. I remember saying two things at that same time while I was shooting. Not certain if it was actually running through my mind or if it was actually coming out of my mouth. Probably a little bit of both. And the first thing I was saying was the little ditty that they taught us early off in infantry school. Some of you are going to want to say it with me. It's the thing that you say when you realize that you have about 3 seconds before the enemy sees you and returns fire to shoot at you, to hit you, to kill you, to put you down. You have about 3 seconds during that time to shoot, move, communicate, or any combination of the three. And it goes a little something like this. 1, I'm up. 2, he sees me. 3, I'm down. I'm up. He sees me. I'm down. I'm up. I move. I shoot. Communicate. I'm down. I'm up. He sees me. I'm down. And the second thing I was saying was a verse from the Bible, Psalm 91. And it goes a little something like this. It says, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my strength, my God in whom I trust. Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare. I'm up. He sees me. I'm down. His faithfulness will be your shield and your rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day. I'm up. He sees me. I'm down. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. I'm up. He sees me. I'm down. Time to reload. And I just remember the air was getting thicker as it's filled with smoke and that smell of diesel, the smell of burning tires, sand from ricochet bullets, Marines and vehicles pounding on the dirt to get into a better position, firing. And I remember I was coming to the end of that rifle magazine, and I was kind of starting to thinking, you know, this is probably not the best place for you to hang out. And I just hear this cacophony of small arms fire off my left flank. And I get a chance to glance up and over that sandbag position. And I see my men on top of that one-story building that they had parked behind, and they are yelling bloody murder for me to get back over there, and they are putting down suppressive fire, and they are taking care, they have taken over, they are doing their part, but they sure want me back over there. I have never in my life felt so loved as I did right then. I think I ran even faster to that building than I had to the sandbag position. I remember joining those guys on that rooftop. And I remember that we had to continue to fight together. But I also remember the feeling, the sense of overwhelming joy to be in the company of these Marines. I still can see their faces despite trading gunfire with the enemy, we were oddly, get this, we were oddly happy together. And there were actual smiles that I remember. In the midst of all that dust and confusion and fog of battle, I remember the smirks and the smiles. And it wasn't because we just loved what we were doing at the time, and it wasn't because we loved the danger. It was none of that. It was because we were together. And no one was going to take that away from us. And I remember that when we finally suppressed the enemy, we cared for our wounded, we learned that in that small town right there, that was the last little pocket of Saddam's Republican Guard soldiers en route to the capital city. And if you remember seeing it on the news later that day, that cleared the way for us to charge north into Baghdad. And later that morning, you may remember seeing Marines with the help of one of our, in my unit, one of our large recovery vehicles pull down a rather large statue. It was one of the most surreal moments of my life, especially being very, very tired from the battle that morning. Amidst such joy, I know that little skirmish on the early morning of 2003 that I just described to you, and I know that the ones that I was in before that, and I know that the ones that I was in after that, I know that they don't hold a candle to the life that was sacrificed at Normandy or Iwo Jima, Okinawa, Chosin, Keisan. But that's not the point. The point is that in every one of those conflicts, and frankly in every war or peacetime inside a combat zone or inside a planning room, in the Pentagon, over at Livermore Labs, in the Chow Hall, or in the depths of a military hospital, in every one of those places and so many more, there are service members who are working together, caring for one another, making one another better. And yes, all the time, in all of those areas, we fight the world over for freedom. And we fight to preserve our democracy for this country. But for us, brothers, sisters, service members, veterans, all of us, for our families too, we fight on behalf of one another. Make no mistake about it. We move forward into conflict because the man or woman to our left and right is moving in that direction as well. You better damn well believe that we're not letting them go it alone. The men and women of the United States Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard learn to operate together, not just because it saves lives, but because it is ingrained in the very fabric of our being as Americans. The veteran is living proof of what the Founding Fathers' underlying intentions were when they etched out the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. None of those things were ever intended to be pursued alone. None of those things are even achievable alone. You realize that? Because we, the human race, were never intended to be alone. You were never intended to go through life alone. We were always meant to move forward together. We were always meant to live and to love and to pursue joy together. And so when you see the service member, and moreover today and this past weekend, and when you get up from your chairs and you look to your left and right and you see the veteran, remember that their very existence as one who has served our country is proof that the dream, which was the United States of America, is still alive and well. No matter what happens, no matter who you vote for, the veteran is a living, breathing symbol that all is not lost, and that hope of this beautiful country is still secure. Every veteran knows what it means to rise to the challenge together. And every veteran knows what it means to risk life together. And as such, they are a shining beacon of all the best that has ever been intended for this great country of ours. So, hug the neck of the veteran you love. And then if you're married, or if you're not, if you're married, hug the neck of the veteran's spouse, because they too have walked the road of sacrifice, right? They too have walked the road of long months with very little information. They too understand the loss of friends and family. I am proud to stand alongside all of you, my fellow veterans, today. We are still together, you know that, right? We will still not leave one another behind. This memorial is living proof of that. And that bond never fades or weakens. And I pray that despite the uncertainty or the brokenness that you may experience in your life, that you remember that you are the inspiration and encouragement to me, to your families, and to the people of these United States of America for years to come. I pray that God would bless all of you. I pray that God would bless this celebration today. They would continue to bless these United States of America. Thanks for having me here today.
Let's keep it going for Joe.